Remember, buying a vehicle is the second largest purchase for, 98% of the people in the country. And so people get more comfortable doing more online. As you know, very few people do the full transaction online. But as I always say to dealers, that number is only going to go in one direction. It's going to grow, right? And I can't tell you what it's going to grow to, but it's not going to shrink. It will grow. And again, how much of the transaction happens online before people arrive in the store, that will grow too.
Today, I'm thrilled to sit down with Brian MacDonald, CEO of CDK Global. We dive into the biggest friction points consumers face at dealerships, touch on innovative solutions, and explore why he's betting $250 million on game-changing shift in automotive retail. A big thank you to our sponsors for making today's episode possible: Richtech Robotics, Connect, and CDK Global. And now let's get into the show. Brian MacDonald on the CDG podcast. Brian, welcome back.
Hey, Yossi, how you doing? It's so great to see you. The last time I was on the podcast, it was before your big reveal. And
was it really?
It was just before your big reveal at NADA last year. So, you kind of had a funny cartoon face in all the videos, but yeah, it was before the big reveal.
Oh man, that feels like an eternity ago. I'm surprised, but yeah, that was, those were the days. Only 12 months ago, but it was definitely exciting times.
It was a lot of fun leading up to the big reveal. Your user count kept growing, and people were guessing on Reddit and everywhere, who is this guy? And it was great.
Man.
It was great.
The internet is crazy. If you would have told me that, this is what I'd be doing, I would have laughed you out the door. Especially because I was never a social media person. I should have been more in hindsight, clearly. But it's funny how, by the way, which is why I'm such an advocate for just dealers to embed it into the fabric of their dealerships, because I've seen the power of the platforms. It's unbelievable. Whether, in any way, engaging with, local audiences, communities, your customers, whatever it is, I think it's super, super powerful. And I'm very, very glad about it.
Look, I read, I can't say I read the in-depth every day, but I scan almost virtually every day, what you put out. And, some of the things I read the in-depth too, if I've got an interest in time. But no, you've created something really, really special here and unique for the industry. Congratulations.
No, I appreciate that. And that's sort of the goal. We say the goal is to be in the pocket of every dealer and industry professional, right? Which really is just a way of saying that whether you listen to us, you read us, you view us, wherever we can bring value to you, we want to be there just a tiny bit or more. But it's really to have we call it the highest signal to noise ratio. It's a constant balance. It's not easy, but thank God we're doing it day by day. But dude, last time we spoke, man, the world looked very different. Like you said, it was well over a year ago at this point, and the world looked different for you as well. I was prior to all cyberattack shenanigans and just craziness. I'd love to just start and tell you how are you doing? How's the company doing? It's been a crazy year for you, so we'd love to just start like that, very broadly speaking.
Yeah, look, I think calendar year 24 was a year I was very happy to turn the calendar on the year. It was an incredibly tough year with the cyber event for CDK and for our dealers and our employees. But I think, as you know, these cyber attacks are unfortunately a part of business. I think the CDK employees really stepped up and were heroic to help our dealers, to get our dealers back up and running. And it was a very stressful time for our dealers and OEMs. And I tell people that, look, I think the CDK culture was pretty strong before the event, but it made the CDK culture even stronger. Our employee engagement scores, which are already, pretty high quartile before the event, actually went up. And so, but it's good to have it in the rearview mirror, and we're moving forward.
I want to move a little bit. I want to go a bit more forward looking. As you think about 2025, new political administration, what comes to mind? What do you think is in store for the industry?
Yeah, I think this, there's certainly a lot of uncertainty of some of the things that will happen with the new administration, related to tariffs, other things. But I think, to me, the fundamental help for the industry and the manufacturers is going to be, a different path towards electrification. I don't know enough to what that's going to look like, but there'll be, call it relief, if you will, for the manufacturers to get to a hybrid fleet or electrified fleet, however it may be. And so I think that's going to create some relief for the manufacturers, as I said. And I always think about the industry kind of first top down, what's happening at the manufacturers, because ultimately if the manufacturers are doing well, then, they can invest in product, they can work better with their dealers. There's kind of more money to go around, if you know what I mean. If the manufacturers are doing well, dealers are typically doing well also. So I think there's some good things. The relief, I think you've already started to see some of the manufacturers shifting their EV plans, moving to more hybrids. Some brands are ahead of others, but I think that will take a lot of pressure, and we see the losses on EVs from some of the manufacturers that disclose them. So I think that's, to me, the number one thing. I think there'll be some tariffs maybe that, then you start to get into particular brands or vehicle lines. And so I think that will kind of work itself through the system in not really a material way. And then I think for dealers, before the election and after the election, talking to dealers who are some of the big consolidators, okay? And one of them was very explicit with me before the election, and he said, well, if one party wins, we're going out and buying new stores, and we're going to grow. If the other party wins, we're going to basically stick with what we have, pay down our debt, and see where this all goes. And, I heard some different themes of that, and I'll just say that I expect those consolidators to be, buying stores. I think there's definitely a buzz in the air. I think there's, a couple big transactions that are hotly rumored right now as well. And so I think you'll see more consolidation this year for sure. And then I think
that's a good take.
Yeah, and then I think on the consumer side, I think, it's kind of pluses and minuses when I think about the consumer. So, a lot of people are underwater on their vehicle, right? Carrying a lot of negative equity. Rates are still pretty high. Credit's a little tight. But, credit will start to ease up. Rates will come down. And, Do you
think rates will come down?
I think rates will come down a little bit. I think that I think the forward curve is sort of adjusted now. It's pretty flat, but I think there's probably one decrease and maybe two. But I don't think rates are going to come down as fast as people think, because I believe there's a lot of embedded inflation in the economy. If you go back and look over the last 3-4 years, you look at the various labor agreements that have happened, whether that's UPS, whether that's the UAW. There's been a Boeing. There's a lot of labor agreements with pretty good wage increases in them, and so I think there's a lot of embedded inflation that still has to work through the system. The employment market's still pretty tight. So I'm not I think we've sort of had this generational decline in rates to near zero, and I'm not sure in the next 20 years we're going to see that again. I think central banks clearly erred with bringing rates down too low, and with quantitative easing that drove inflation. One thing about central banks, they don't tend to make the same mistake again, at least for a while, till they all change over and there's a bunch of new central bankers there. So I'm not that bullish on rates coming down a lot, but you also can't ignore the stock market and the wealth effect, right? People feel good. They look at their 401k statements. People feel good about their situation, financial situation, and then so they're more likely to go out and buy. So I think it'll be a good year. I think it'll be a good year for retailers. I think it'll be a good year for manufacturers. So I think pretty optimistic going into 2025.
Yeah, I think regarding rates in prices, we're still in this point of bloated inventories. Rates, like you said, they might come down a tiny bit, but we're not going back to where we were. So affordability is going to be a continued concern, which I think, we'll see how that plays out into the next couple of years. The used car market is not making it any easier with the shortages there, which last I checked, we should start seeing a slow ramp up in 2026. So used cars will actually get tighter in 25, and that should put some pressure. I do want to transition the conversation to, I want to compliment you. I know you've had some pretty meaningful clients re-up with CDK or stick around and actually expand their relationships. And I wanted to ask you about that. How have you gone about that? What has that process been like for you? Again, post the craziness of 24 and some pretty big dealer groups that said that, they were going to expand their relationship with you. How's that been? What has that process been like?
Yeah, look, I think one of the beauties of CDK is we have long and loyal relationships with our dealers. Our employees are so committed to dealers in the industry, and we really have strong partnerships with these dealers. And I think the other thing that's been really helpful is, we're investing. Dealers see us investing. They see us, spending money to improve our technology and keep the edge that we have. So, for example, in 2025, we'll spend over $250 million on products and technology and improvements in our infrastructure, Yossi, that's more than the revenue of most of our competitors. That's what we're spending on our technology. And so I think that message really resonates with dealers, that we're really investing. We recognize that technology is moving fast and we're innovating. And so I think I put it twofold. It's a combination of, long, solid relationships and commitments from us to the dealers, and dealers really seeing our commitment to the industry and our investment profile.
Okay, so I just want to double click on that. I had a conversation with Leanne from your team last year. We spoke about AI and some of the impacts it's going to have on a dealership. When you say investing in our technology, what does that mean? Are you integrating AI in what ways, right? Like, how do you sort of envision the dealership operating system evolving?
Yeah, I think, first of all, we've evolved to be a platform, that what we used to call DMS. We've evolved to our dealership experience platform. And then we have various other suites to go with that, whether it's for fixed ops or for reporting, et cetera. So I think the way we think about AI is really twofold. I always tell people and remind them that AI without data, artificial intelligence without data, is actually just artificial, okay? Because AI is all about the data and what you can learn from it. And nobody has more data than CDK. So AI is not a product, right? AI is something that should be embedded in all of our products to help dealers make better decisions, communicate with their customers. So, for example, we'll be introducing a new vehicle inventory suite, and it will have embedded AI in it. So, for example, based upon the trade-in, we'll leverage all the CDK data, and we'll say, hey, these are major repair items for that type of vehicle, or here's how that vehicle will stand up at your store based upon your history and CDK's history. So the way we're approaching AI is to really bring AI into all of our products, and we'll continue to do that and innovate that, leveraging the data that we have.
Got it. So you're basically saying you're taking all dealers' data and you're running that through AI and trying to create analytics, really actionable insights for dealers. And with the specific use case you just mentioned, it's with inventory. But, is there other things you're thinking about?
Absolutely. Propensity to buy, suggested repairs, there's so much, right? The world is limitless for AI, quite frankly, but it's really, the challenge is you got to have the data, as I said, but then it's like, how do you take that and create actionable insights that people can use? Pragmatic things, right? And then that will evolve over time based upon, feedback that we get from our dealers and what we see helping dealers. So I think it's going to be very dynamic. This AI evolution will take place over a long period of time. If you think about it, put it in the context of the internet, right? The internet came, started to change things, and then it all went. I'm old enough to remember when the internet became a thing. And then if you look back, how the internet changed how we do everything. I mean, AI will have the same effect, and it'll take place.
I believe it.
time.
Yeah. I just did a panel the other day, the Automotive Leadership Roundtable, and Brian Benstock was there as well, and he said something that I thought was very astute, and you just mentioned it as well, which is that if you went and asked Elon Musk, right, like, what DMS do you use? Like, he would laugh you out the door. And you just mentioned, like, moving to a platform. I think that this is one of the most important shifts that, in hindsight, will happen in auto retail. The fact that we are moving to platforms and the industry, because the era of these disparate systems that don't talk to each other, it's just, at the end of the day, it just disadvantages every single dealer, and the consumer eventually gets hurt here. It doesn't make the car buying experience any better when you don't know who I am 5 minutes after I submitted a lead form, or maybe I'm in the CRM but not the DMS. So I think that will be a very welcome change. I'm very curious to see how it helps the industry compete with, other direct-to-consumer automakers or all these upstarts that are coming into the market. Now you hear of Fila, right? Sony, Honda. I mean, Scout Motors. There's never a shortage of them. So I think it's going to be interesting to just observe over the next 3 to 5 years how all this plays out in the market, where the dealership experience does improve, undoubtedly, because we have better tools and technology, and ultimately that impacts what buying a car, is actually for the average consumer.
Well, the other part of that, Yossi, is the data, right? If you have all these disparate systems and you really want to leverage AI, but your data's in, multiple different places in different formats, it just makes it that much harder. And so I think that's the other part of this that we'll see as we go forward, that having the uniformity of the data in a single platform will really help drive the AI and machine learning innovation that we all expect to see.
Do you think customer experience and data platforms, do you think those will just be native parts of all, what we used to call DMSs or platforms nowadays that operate dealerships, or will there still be, lots of bolt-on solutions in the market?
Well, I think that, look, there's always innovation in our space, right? And so I never will say that, the bolt-ons will go away, because there's always innovation. And regardless of what industry you are, there's always innovation around the core. And so I think we'll continue to have some of that innovation. We've got some great entrepreneurs in our space. But I do think that over time, and I hear it from dealers all the time, dealers want to have less bolt-ons, less swivel chairs, less sign-ons. Yeah. And so there's certainly a trend towards that, which I think will continue. And look, just the investment, the investment for these technologies and the things that you'll need to do a startup and try to compete against, what is a very well-established industry. There's a lot of strong competitors in this space. I think you'll see less of that as we go forward than you have historically. But I would never say that, there won't be sort of bolt-ons or add-ons that pop up now and again from entrepreneurs in the space. And at the end of the day, dealers like choice, right? So, dealers are very entrepreneurial. They'll say, let me try this tool, let me try that tool, let's see how it works. I don't think I get an ROI on it. So there's a natural tension there. Look, I always tell dealers, look, I love to sell you everything I have to sell you, but if you want to use someone else's product for this or that, obviously that's a dealer choice, and dealers do like to have choices, and so that's just part of the health of the industry.
This episode is brought to you by Richtech Robotics. Dealership owners and GMs, if you're not automating, you're leaving money on the table. That's where Titan comes in. It's not just a robot, but an autonomous parts delivery system that helps keep technicians in bays and boosts fixed ops efficiency by up to 12%. No more wasted trips to the parts counter. Titan delivers faster, carries more, and takes the strain off your staff. For a limited time, Richtech Robotics is offering a free 2-week pilot. Just cover shipping. You can visit richtechrobotics.com/CDG to book your trial now, or click the link in the show notes below. Again, that's richtechrobotics.com/CDG. Act fast, spots are filling up quick. So you're saying if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, every dealer gets 50% off on all their CDK products?
Well, I certainly hope the Eagles win the Super Bowl. That's for sure.
Well, so we'll keep this on the record. But before we started the conversation, it was funny because you were asking me about the Eagles, and I was telling you how I moved to a new area a couple years ago, and there was all these booms that went off after the Eagles won the wild card game. Now, I did not imagine that where I live today, there would be fireworks going off for a wild card win. So I asked my neighbors, I'm like, "What's going on? Did someone shoot someone?" I was like, I didn't expect that to happen.
You forgot what happened to the Eagles in the wild card last year.
Yeah. So, anyways, that was the sidebar. Cool. Well, all right. So before I do want to shift gears to some industry insights specifically, because I know each year I covered this last year as well, but you put out Friction Points, which is a very highly anticipated report that your team puts a lot of work into, which sheds light on where is the industry facing the most amount of friction throughout the car buying process. So we will transition to that. I get one last question on the product part that we didn't address, but we spoke a lot about kind of forward-looking new products. How do you think about your more legacy products, more simplistic stuff that, maybe does not get as much attention within what it takes to operate a dealership? Give you some example, like customer services, certification, like workflows.
Yeah, we're innovating in every area of our business. We launched a certification program last year, so where dealership employees can get certified as a CDK fixed ops Technician 1, Technician 2, right? So these are all meant to help dealership employees up their skill level, but also help dealers, right? If now I'm looking to hire somebody, I can see they're certified in CDK accounting, I can see they're certified in CDK fixed ops. And so that's an example of an innovation that we have that, is not a product per se, but it's really meant to help dealers. The same thing, we've innovated around CDK University and the courses we have there. We've just launched a new customer contact system that allows dealers to use chat, phone, get a call back if they're don't want to hold for an agent for a couple minutes, to just get a call back. So there's an innovation, Yossi, in everything we're doing, and that's where where, as I said before, we're spending $250 million, which goes a long way to innovate. And so I would say every product, as well as our services and the way we work with customers, we're innovating around it.
All right, so moving forward to some insight, there was a lot of interesting points in this new report. I just want to start with simple, right? Like sales process at dealerships. Based on your data, over 50% of the country, or dealerships in the country, people are spending over 2 hours. People who spend over 2 hours at the dealership has been falling, the percentage of those people. Can you just shed some light into that, into specific research?
Yeah, so the way we approach this through our modern retailing suite is really to let the customers do some work up front before they go to the dealership with whatever they're comfortable with, right? In the omni-channel buying experience, if they're comfortable doing a credit app in advance, if they're submitting their driver's license. So what are the things that we can do to meet the customer where they want to be so that they spend less time in the dealership, if that's what they want, and generally that's what people want, is a more seamless experience at the dealership. And so we really take this holistic approach of let's meet the customer where they want to be met. Let's let them work a deal from their couch, save the deal, go take their kids to the soccer game, come back home, pick up the deal, submit some docs, go into the store, have a test drive, and maybe think about the vehicle, come back. And so we really try to have a holistic process that really meets the retail customer where they want to be met. And look, dealers have their own ways they want to do things too, right? Some dealers want to try to get the customer in the store as quickly as they can. They're less worried about having some of the docs done online. And so we make things flexible because dealers have their own philosophies of the way they want to engage with their customers. And I think that's a big part, and we're starting to see the benefits of that in our studies and the time in the dealership shrinking. And I think a lot of that is through some of these processes that you take care of some of the administrative stuff before folks come into the dealership.
Yeah. How much do you think this reduction in time spent in dealership is due to change in process versus technology versus frankly having more options for customers at the dealership so they can find what they want faster, right? How do you kind of put your weight to that and really know where you're driving the needle?
Well, look, your question, technology drives process, right? That's the benefit of technology is technology will drive consistent process. And so that's part of what I think we're seeing with people needing to spend less time in the dealership because the use of the technology, the buying to the technology, and following the process. And so I think that's a big part of it. And at the end of the day, why do we have technology, right? Why does anybody spend for technology? It's to make us more efficient, right? To drive a consistent process and to make us more efficient. Otherwise, we shouldn't spend money on the technology. And I think that's what we're starting to see. And people remember, buying a vehicle is the second largest purchase for 98% of the people in the country. And so people get more comfortable doing more online. As you know, very few people do the full transaction online. But as I always say to dealers, that number is only going to go in one direction. It's going to grow, right? And I can't tell you what it's going to grow to, but it's not going to shrink. It will grow. And again, how much of the transaction happens online before people arrive in the store, that will grow too, right? We've seen that in other industries. I was a Dell executive. I mean, we saw the same thing with, used to call up Dell, buy your PC on the phone, right? And then that migrated to, go onto Dell.com. So, you have this natural shift in e-commerce. You've seen it in other industries. Obviously, cars is a big ticket item, and so that will evolve as well. And so I think we're in the early innings of that, but it's only going to go in one direction.
My wife has a text on her phone for a while already. It's telling her to come get her service done, and it hasn't been done. And I sent it to a dealer the other day. I said, "You see?" I said, "This is why the industry needs to embrace more pickup and delivery." And by the way, we would gladly pay for pickup and delivery. And I know I'm not every consumer, but I'm just saying, I think that I would very much welcome that, to have the idea of picking up and delivering a car, whether you charge a consumer or whether you don't, because the reality is I'm N of one, but I would pay a much higher RO if I knew that vehicle got picked up and if I didn't have to think about it, right? And I knew it was just taken care of. So I think if there's even one dealer listening to this that is saying, how do I grow my service revenue? And you are not in an area where, or let's just say you are in an area where your customers have some disposable income, gotta try pickup and delivery, because again, I'm only one person, but you will grow ROs. and it will make people's lives much easier.
Yeah, no, there's some dealers that also are doing mobile service very successfully.
Correct, mobile service
you know,
as well.
Some people have tried it, couldn't quite make it work, but I know some dealers are wildly successful with mobile service too. So it really comes down a little bit to the brand and the customer base. I mean, will the customer be willing to pay? Can they afford to pay? And can you make the
Correct.
economics work? But yeah, that's what I love about the space. There's always innovation, and I had a good long conversation with the dealer about their experience in mobile service, and they're not a southern dealer, but occasionally they just send their trucks down to the south, and they get enough work. They get enough work for them, and so there's just this incredible innovation that happens in our space. But I would watch mobile service too, especially as you get more data on it. As people get more data on it, and you can sort of figure out, okay, the routing and the kind of work you can do that will give you a decent margin, and how to optimize the routing and those sorts of things. So yeah, I would keep my eye on that. I think pickup and delivery, again, I think that's very dependent on the brand. I think different brands have tried that with new car sales, right? And it's it's tough when there's not a lot of margin in the sale.
Not car buying, by the way. Yeah. I'm referring strictly to service.
Yeah. I agree. I'm just saying that, a couple of brands tried that with new car sales as well, and it's depending on the brand and if there's enough margin. It always comes back to, is there enough margin to offer these things up? Can you get enough? Can you do it efficiently enough? Can you get enough price to get the margin?
This episode was brought to you by Connect AI. Did you know that your 1, 2, and 3-star reviews can cost your auto dealership up to 30 leads per day? Connect AI will help eliminate and remove negative reviews from your online sites, such as Google, Meta, third-party listing sites, and more. Connect also uses AI to respond to reviews and deliver sentiment analysis in real time. See why more than 10,000 dealerships in North America use Connect every day. Find them online today at connect.ai. That's KENECT.ai, or click the link in the show notes below.
Mobile service is definitely an area I'm watching. We've covered it in the newsletter several times. Also growing very quickly. Some dealerships are really excelling at it. Like we covered Bozard Ford down in in the South in Florida. They're killing it with mobile service. So shout out to them. So I want to now and I want to talk also about variable ops a bit, because I did see in your report as well. Saw that there's some customers are not very happy with F&I, or I would say F&I happiness, if that's not a paradox for the consumer, is down. What's your thoughts on that? Right, specifically the wait times with F&I. Do you think that puts F&I at risk? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit of the dissatisfaction comes back to affordability, right? If consumers are already kind of struggling with the price of the vehicle, the payment that the increase in their payment from the last vehicle they had, then they have to go into the F&I office, and so I think there's a little bit of
face
that.
Reality.
Yeah, I mean, it's very it's on the ground, right? It's very difficult. And so I think that's part of it. But again, I think technology process can help drive more efficiency there as well.
Do you have any data on your dealerships, whether they have like a traditional F&I office or more of like a single point concierge style process in store? Do you kind of know the split on that? Or?
No, I don't know the split, but I mean, this is what I love about dealers, right? They innovate, they try. Some dealers are trying not to have a dedicated F&I person, obviously, work that model. Some other dealers are trying more of a centralized model and leveraging Zoom to get better reach and help people with hours. And so I think there's a lot of innovation around, F&I. I think the challenge at the same time is dealers are, risk averse as well to upset the apple cart and make changes in the way they do F&I, because it's such a profit driver. And if you mess it up, you're gonna mess up your P&L pretty quickly. So that's kind of where I see the friction point. Dealers would like to innovate and to try to have a more efficient F&I process, to have a lower cost F&I process, but at the same time, they're a little bit risk averse about screwing up the profitability.
Well, you definitely called out the elephant in the room, and I think that does make it challenging. But with that said, I mean that's a good point, right? How do you go about changing a process like that, and even testing a new process, and why, right? What's the incentive? It's one of those things. It's short-term pain, long-term gain, but definitely I think it's a good point.
Well, I think also back back to our discussion around, modern retailing, process. If you can get more customers to buy in and do more of the process online, that just saves time in the F&I office too, right? So I think to me, it all kind of fits together. Leverage the technology, drive the process, drive that efficiency, and improve the customer experience.
Well said. Brian MacDonald, really good to catch up. Thanks for coming on, man.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.